Don't fracking move. Now, I'm no eco-warrior, activist or global rights campaigner, but if somebody told you that a company can drill for gas under your home and you have no say in the matter, wouldn't you be concerned? Well, I fracking am. That's why I decided to find out the fracking truth. I recently spoke to my friend Sue, who told me about fracking. Before speaking to her, I'd heard vague things about it, but was shocked by what she showed me. So shocked, I wanted to find more out about it. My first stop was to speak to someone called David Castovan. David has his own YouTube channel called The Fracking Farmhouse. I'll put the link below. Hi David.
Hello.
Thanks for speaking to me today. I understand that INEOS, a petrochemical company, has been given permission for exploratory drilling close to Marshall Lane near Eckington, north of Chesterfield, quite close to my hometown of Mansfield. What does this mean for the residents in and around the area, and what sort of things can they expect?
Well, they've got permission last week for an exploratory well. So they're going to take 3 months to build the well pad. That's about 3,000 trucks. Then they're going to drill for 3 months. They've got a 60-metre rig, drilling 24/7 for 3 months, just on the edge of the village. It's a noisy thing, 99 decibels the top drive. If they find what they're looking for, and this is what we dread, they'll take the sample out. If they find what they're looking for, it means they'll frack there. This means they've got to drill another well. This one goes down and horizontally, it's going to take them longer. Then they're going to fill that up with water. They're going to have to tanker in millions of gallons of water, put chemicals in, ram it down. Frack trucks generate loads of pressure, and that will split the rock under our village. It'll split the rock. Then the water will shoot back out. About half of it will shoot back out. That'll be toxic. That water has to be tankered off, and then gas will come out, and that's what they're after. Methane gas, but ethane as well. They make plastic with ethane. And
plastic that we don't need.
Yeah. INEOS are the biggest manufacturers of plastic in the country. This is what they're after. They're after raw materials for their plastics factories. It's not about energy security, although some of the methane could go into the grid, but they take a lot out of the grid. But the problem with fracking, what's different, is you need more and more wells, because that horizontal well that they've just fracked at Marsh Lane, if they get around to it, will only go about a mile. So 2 miles away they'll have to drill the next well, and then the next well. On each well pad they can drill about up to 10 wells. Each one of them taking 3 to 4 months to drill. It's constant drilling. So you'll be able to see all over here, you'll notice when it turns into a gas field, you'll notice drill after drill after drill.
What happens to this beautiful countryside here with the lake at the back there? What will happen to that if they start fracking?
It's highly likely that lake sits on top of old coal mines. We're a historic coal mining area. We had Professor Stiles came to our public inquiry. He says highly risky fracking in coal mining areas because you're very likely to set off earthquakes. There's only been one well fracked in the UK so far in Lancashire in 2011. Set off 48 earthquakes, too big enough to be felt, and that's why they stopped. They haven't drilled a well since. But if we got earth tremors here, likely that lake could go.
And what about the wildlife that's in it?
Can you imagine looking down there and just having a pile of mud and you say, why? Because the country's richest man wants more raw materials to make more plastic. That's why. That's the bottom line of this. It's all about the greed.
Who owns INEOS?
Jim Radcliffe. INEOS is the richest privately owned company in the country. He owns 60% of the shares. 2 other guys own 20% each. He's the country's richest man. Recently moved to Monaco.
Because he must like his views.
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to be looking at gas fields, does he?
No.
He doesn't live at Grangemouth where his factory is.
I did hear one other thing that it shocks me a little bit and takes me by surprise, and I don't know whether it's just a rumour or not, or whether it's fact. I heard that I heard that INEOS are taking the National Trust to court because they won't let them drill on their land.
It's not drilling yet, it's seismic surveys. So
Right.
they want these things, thumper trucks, they want to drive around, smash the ground, and so they can echo out where the shale is, because they want to know where it is to drill it. Clumber Park's nearby, huge, owned by the National Trust. The National Trust, they're saying, no, actually, because it's about fossil fuels, it's, you know, we don't want to develop more fossil fuels because they're very, like, they're aware of climate change, they're all about sustainability forever for everyone. And so they said, no, we don't want you seismic testing on our land. And so INEOS said, right, we'll take you to court because we think it's in the national interest to get this gas out.
So they want to take seismic testing on Clumber Park?
Yes. And if they got permission, and Sherwood Forest, and around the Myrtle Oak, we said, will you drill in Sherwood Forest? They said, oh no, we won't. We'd put the well pads around the edge and drill underneath it.
Right, okay. So what's going to happen to the actual land above then? They've not even given that a thought, I guess.
They don't care. They're just after money.
One other thing, they probably haven't taken it into account. I'm sure that people of Marsh Lane and the surrounding areas have. What about the valuation on their houses? Because if they do seismic testing there and they give it the go-ahead, or even if people know that they're doing seismic testing, it's going to have some detrimental effect on the sale of their property.
Right. There was a government report in 2015, heavily redacted by DEFRA, that said house prices are expected to fall by 7% in gas areas, gas fields. I mean, in practice, we think it's going to be a lot more. I mean, at the moment, you know, you can't sell at Marsh Lane, so they say. Yeah, it will affect your house prices. It will also affect your home insurance. But this is the north of England, isn't it? It's not. It's not London. It's not the south.
I did hear that somebody in government, I don't know whether this is true or not, so don't quote me on this, but I did hear that they said yes, you can frack, but frack in the desolate north.
Yeah, that phrase, the desolate north, I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
There are large and uninhabited and desolate areas, certainly up in the part of the northeast, where there's plenty of room for fracking. There's well away from anybody's residence. Well away from anybody's residence, where it will be conducted without any kind of threat to the rural environment.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of hurts. Look, it looked desolate.
It doesn't look that desolate to me, it looks lovely.
It is bloody lovely. Sorry, it is lovely. This is our home, this is where we live. We love this place. We don't want them to ruin it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If you were from anywhere else but the desolate north, right, and you wanted to move up to here and you wanted to buy a property and you knew that they were drilling or exploratory drilling, if you knew that they were exploratory drilling or fracking near where you were going to buy, would you buy a property?
I wouldn't buy into the gas field.
No.
I just wouldn't, because I've done research, I've looked at scientific papers, I have read so many papers in the last 2 years since this nightmare started. I have read so much scientific literature and government reports, and it all says it's not safe.
Well, let's ask the YouTube viewers. I'm going to put a link above. Would you buy a property or real estate in an area where they're going to be fracking? Just answer yes or no. Is there a way of stopping them from doing exploratory drilling? Is there a way? Is there still time? Can we do something about it?
They've got to meet conditions for their planning, and they're also trying to get permission to drill 10 miles that way, Woodsets, the Harthill and Woodsets. So they've got to get all permissions in. I don't think they can do anything for 6 months to a year. That's a guess. In that time, we've got to organise. We've got to get people to say, you know, wake up. They really are planning to ruin this land, to do a gas field. They are planning hundreds of wells. If they find what they're looking for, and what they say in Australia, the most important well to stop is the first one.
Yeah.
Right, they banned it in Scotland, they banned it in Wales, they banned it in France, they banned it in Germany. There's a lot of countries said no.
So the Scottish government's banned it?
Yes.
Right.
They've got a moratorium. They will not grant planning permission.
Okay.
And INEOS are trying to take them to court. So they're not just taking the National Trust to court, they're taking the Scottish government to court. They've got more money. They've got more money than God, you know, like he's the country's richest man. Oh, there's a problem. let's get the lawyers in. And it frightens people. You know, the Derbyshire County Council, they're not going to appeal this decision because they'll have to pay the costs if they don't win.
The Derbyshire County, they're not going to appeal it?
They're not going to appeal against this planning decision. What we've got to do, you know, if they find what they're looking for at the exploratory well, then we have to fight the fracking well, but we've got to stop the exploratory well. We're not having them building a well pad here. You know, we're just not, so we're making a noise about it. We'll go to London if we have to. We'll do whatever it takes, because they're only after it for the money, but we're after it for this. This is our lives, this is where we live. We ain't stopping.
Well, I've got to say, as I say, I don't know a great deal about fracking. I've only just found out about it. But when I heard, it just made no sense whatsoever. None whatsoever.
It is insane on climate grounds, on ecological grounds. You know, I'm an environmentalist, right? I look after this lovely garden and I can see flowering times change. You know, that's what started me off on this journey, was seeing climate change actually happening with my eyes. Because, you know, if you stand still long and you watch, there's crocuses over there, they flower in February all the time, except 2015 they flowered before Christmas, and they've been flowering before Christmas since. It's breaking my heart seeing the climate changing. The last thing we need is unlocking another reservoir of fossil fuels, and to do it in a way that pollutes so much and is so invasive. It stops here.
Well, I know what I would say. I would say frack right off. Share this video, get the message around, and let's stop them before they start. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
So, there you have it. I learned a lot off of David, but I wanted to delve further into this. I wanted to speak to Parliament. Who better to speak to than Member of Parliament for North East Derbyshire, Lee Rowley. Hi, I'm here with Lee Rowley, Member of Parliament for North East Derbyshire. Lee, thank you for coming here today. Could you tell me, do you think that the fracking companies have a future in this country, in the United Kingdom?
I don't think they do, and I don't think they do for this reason. And there are lots of different views out there about whether fracking is a good or a bad idea, and I am on record as saying I don't think it's a good idea. But if you want to do fracking in any meaningful way in the United Kingdom, if you want to have any meaningful impact on energy security or on imports or on any other jobs and growth and things like that, you have to do it to such an extent that places like this that we're stood behind, places like this would have to be concreted over to such a large number. Thousands of these places would have to be concreted over across the country, that I just don't think that's acceptable, and I don't think people want that. And that's why I don't think it will work, because fundamentally people don't want 1, 3, 5, 6,000 lots of fracking sites all across the country in order to only have a marginal impact on energy imports and energy security.
So basically we would lose all of this countryside that we've got here. There'd be, how would it be if fracking went ahead? What would we see around here?
So the fracking, if it happens, or the exploratory drilling which is happening in Derbyshire, is happening just a little bit further up the road, but it's the equivalent of this kind of, it's a few hundred metres away, it's the equivalent of this kind of, so you would have this entire field concreted over, 2 football fields worth of concrete which is poured over there just for the drilling, just to check if anything's down there for a period of up to 5 years. And then you would have up to 10 metres worth of industrial equipment, flues, valves, pressures, lots of things that are required for it, which will be there for the entire 5 years. And then for a period of 6 months or so, you will have a 60-metre drill which goes right up into the sky, which will be drilling the actual well itself. Now that will be there for 3 to 6 months, but everything else, the other 10-metre high lot of equipment, will be there for up to 5 years. And then the concrete will be there for the entire 5 years, and there'll be thousands of traffic lorry movements, there'll be lots of comings and goings. This is a fundamentally rural area. You can see that where it's actually happening just up the road is no different.
There's going to be lorries coming down here?
Yeah, there will be lorries coming down this road in order to get, well, the entrance will be on the next road along, but there will be 15,000 lorry movements over the course of 5 years to get the things on here that is needed in order for fracking to happen on that 2 football fields worth of concrete. It's a huge industrialisation. This part of the world has not been changed since the 1695 Enclosures Act, and we are now about to concrete over it in order to see if there's something down there for ultimately a process which probably isn't going to work because people don't want thousands of these around the country.
Can I ask finally, do you think by making people aware of this that we can stop fracking going ahead? Do you think there's a possibility of that?
I hope so. I mean, in a democracy, you have to hope that what people think and people power ultimately works. I've been an MP around here for a year. I didn't come into this debate with a huge amount of knowledge about fracking. Fracking wasn't the thing that got me into politics. But as I've learnt more and as I've understood more and as I've realised what will happen to parts of the world like this and how often and how much of it will need to be magnified across the country for it to be workable, I've just come to the conclusion that it won't work. And enough people say it won't work. If enough people say we don't want it near us, not because they're NIMBYs, but because it's not practical to take the amount of land which is required, then I do think we will be able to hopefully change minds and stop this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
No worries.
My next stage of the journey took me to meet Keith Atkin, co-founder of Bolsover Against Fracking. What better place to meet him in than the entrance to Clumber Park? Hi, I'm here outside the entrance to Clumber Park with Keith, the co-founder of Bolsover Against Fracking. Now, you've lived in northeast Derbyshire all of your life. Can you tell me why we should be worried about fracking?
Somebody who's lived here all their life and worked here all their life, the area means a tremendous amount to us. I remember as a young person being taken as a family all over this area, from the Peak District in the west to Sherwood Forest and Clumber Park in the east. An area for relaxation, an area of tranquility and peace for a lot of working people in the heavy industry that has been around here. Places like Sheffield, Rotherham, Derby, Nottingham. This area is central to all of those. And in addition to it being an absolutely beautiful part of the country, there's a heck of a lot of cultural interest as well here, because we have places like Renisher Hall, the home of the Sitwell family. We have the Chatsworth estate, the Duke of Devonshire, the ancestral home of the Dukes of Devonshire. We have Bolsover Castle, we have Hardwick Hall. Out this way we have Clumber Park, we have Sherwood Forest, and there are also areas of very special interest, places like Cresswell Crags, which is where I think it's the only place in the country where they have found Stone Age remains and cave paintings, etc. So it's a very special area, and you can imagine what we would feel like to see heavy machinery, to see drilling rigs, etc. absolutely desecrating the area.
Now, we're here outside, like as I say, the entrance to Clumber Park, and we've got all this beautiful scenery over here. What will we see if the fracking goes ahead?
If the fracking goes ahead, then, well, could I quote Calvin Jones, a professor from Cardiff University, who has done extensive research into the number of fracking wells that would need to be. And if we take the maximum scenario where the government would like us to be totally self-sufficient in gas supplies, then to provide that self-sufficiency, then we're looking in the UK at something like 13 to 14,000 fracking wells, which means over the next 15 years, which is roughly the life cycle of a well, it means developing and drilling for 3 new wells every day for 15 years.
3 new wells every day? 3 new wells every day.
And the wells, because they can drill horizontally now, then it means that they can drill horizontally for anywhere around about a mile.
So that means that the wells would come underneath Clumber Park?
Oh, absolutely. They're more than capable. With the latest technology in the States, then they're capable of drilling for 3 miles underground. what we have to go on are thousands of reports from all over the world where fracking has taken place, because no one has fracked a successful well in this country yet. There is only one attempt, and that was at Priest Hall in 2011. The well integrity failed, the well casing collapsed, and it was sealed off, and nothing has been done since. So our expertise, our experience, our knowledge of fracking is very, very limited. Okay, so what it means basically is that we're moving into the unknown, but all we've got to go on is what has happened in other countries, and there are now thousands and thousands. The evidence is overwhelming that fracking has produced health effects in people who live nearby. It's ruined environments in places where leaking methane, leaking gases, etc. Are contaminating water supplies, contaminating farmland. And in addition to that, one of the really frightening things is that we've just had a period of drought in this country. Ain't it wonderful to see the sunshine? But what it does mean is that reservoirs are now drying up. When you consider that each fracking well will use anywhere up to 5 million litres of water.
They're going to use our water from our reservoirs.
Absolutely, they have to pump water down to force the gas out, along with a lot of chemicals.
I know this is just from somebody who knows nothing about fracking, but are the water boards going to give them permission to do that? Or?
As far as I'm aware, the water boards have not been approached.
Right.
There may be talks in the background, I don't know, I couldn't comment on that. But I have talked to representatives of fracking companies and asked them where the water would come from, and they've said it would have to come from domestic supplies, because they have to use clear, pure water, natural water. So it would mean that they would use water from reservoirs. It would probably mean that they would abstract water from rivers, from boreholes, and especially in this area, when you realise that all the water supplies for North Notts come from an underground aquifer, a sandstone aquifer. That aquifer will have to be punctured many times to reach the shale gas below it.
That means they're going to pollute our water supplies.
Again, can I quote a reference from Tony Ingraffi, a professor at Cornell University in the States, who did a research on wells and how long they lasted, etc. And he found that in the first 3 months, something like that, 5% of wells leaked. Over the next couple of years, 50% leaked. And over the lifetime of a well, which is the lifetime that I've just talked about, 15 to 20 years, they all leak. When you consider that you've punctured an aquifer with domestic water supplies, then you can understand what is going to happen to that aquifer. Okay? And that process, I would point out, is irreversible. Once the aquifers are polluted, there is no way that they can clean them.
This is just outrageous. I can't believe that the government have let this go ahead.
The government is supporting it.
The government are supporting this?
Yes. And fracking companies have taken out licenses to explore, drill and explore for gas right the way, a big swathe of country right away across the north of England. There are other places in the south, but very limited compared with this.
It's just absolutely outrageous. It's incomprehensible, really, that, I mean, looking at this beautiful countryside, that they're going to be rigs around everywhere.
You can understand our concern. If the fracking companies move in, then our way of life, our health, our environment are all going to be, it's going to be disastrous for them. Because that has been proven so many times in the States, in Australia, in European countries, in America even now. Some of the results are now starting to come through from fracking that has been going on for probably 10-15 years, and some of the health results are starting to come through because it takes time to filter through. States in the USA are now starting to ban fracking
Well,
because of the results.
I said yesterday, just over the water from where I live in Hoboken, there's New York, and New York State has banned fracking.
So has Vermont, so has several states. In Australia, exactly the same scenario. They're now starting to ban fracking because the results are starting to come through. So we have a multitude of reports of you know, the ill effects of fracking.
What do we need to do as a community to stop them fracking?
Persuade, in the first instance, persuade politicians, and I'm talking about national politicians really, to change their minds about the viability of fracking. Because at the end of the day, we are being asked to suffer the side effects of fracking for the sake of fracking companies, one of whom is a plastics manufacturer.
Is that INEOS?
That's INEOS, yes.
Yeah.
And basically they have openly said that they would want the gases out of there to pursue for their own fracking industry. Sorry, for their own plastics industry.
So basically you've got INEOS providing the plastics company that's owned by INEOS.
Absolutely.
So right, so the money's all going in one pocket there.
At the end of the day, INEOS want the gas for the manufacture of plastics to pollute the oceans even more. Okay, people mistakenly are told by government and by politicians that, you know, it will be good because it will lower gas bills, you know, it will be good for the economy, etc. Government's own reports show that we do not need the increase in gas. At this moment in time, the amount of gas we have in this country, okay, 30% of it is re-exported to Europe. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't need to develop further gas fields in this country.
Well, it's just absolutely beyond belief. But anyway, thank you for your time. And
Okay.
I've only got one thing to say. They can frack right off.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Wow, breathtaking scenery there and some interesting information. From there I went to see Gloria Havenhand, local Christmas tree grower, beekeeper and biologist. Let's have a look what she got to say. Hi, I'm here with Gloria Havenhand, local beekeeper, biologist and Christmas tree grower. Gloria, thanks for having me here today. Could you tell me what your thoughts are on fracking?
I'll try, Lee, I'll try and keep my passions down as much as I possibly can. I think if you look around here, and what a wonderful environment it is. We have many acres of Christmas trees and beehives, and of course I was brought up with my old grandmother who was into bees even in a mining village in the middle of Derbyshire. So bees have been part of my life. But what I didn't realise when I came to Trowick, which was all 30 years ago, and my husband and I planted somewhere in the region of 80,000 Christmas trees within 2 years. That's quite some, Lee.
It is.
And these Christmas trees, we thought, I wanted the bees, I've had bees all my life, that goes without saying. But at the end of the day, we realised that the bees and the trees were doing something quite phenomenal. And over the first 5, 6, 7 years, we began to see our honey get darker and darker and darker. And the one thing is, we thought, there's something different. There's something very different about this honey. So we got Sheffield University involved. Professor Milton Wainwright, who is professor at 3 universities and probably another one by now. And then they had a faculty, you know, engaging honey in a lot of postgraduate work. And on it, it actually says, tested by Professor Wainwright, microbiologist, for decades using in vitro tests, recognizing and overcoming Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, E. coli, B. subtilis, B. sphericus and S. epidermidis, and whereby our honey is never filtered, it's got plenty of pollen in, plenty of everything, and this is due to this fantastic environment in which we live And can I say created as well, Lee? And the one thing it all depends on is water. We have a natural well which goes down about 200 metres. We have a spring across the road. We have aquifers going all the way down here. And when you get down there, there's the most delightful hay meadow that goes back probably 200 or 300 years. And it's damp. And it's registered by Natural England, and then we get to the River Moss. And in this particular hay meadow, it's called a site of special scientific interest. It's a blessing to all of us. And we have over 208 species of wildflower, and it has never changed in those 200 years. And it's like a precious jewel to us here and to the rest of the neighbourhood. And can I also say as well, we have so many visitors and they're not allowed to go across this. Depends on water, 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 water. We are composed of water, 75–80% of us are water. Bees are 80% water. The trees, literally, are made up of water. The whole thing we have around us is water. This green land will not be green for very long without water. Because in fracking, and the more you have drought, then you're pushing this water down to 1.5 miles, then you're moving it in all directions, radial movement, don't forget. Then we have all the aquifers here. It will ruin all those. There'll be shale to no end. And at the end of all this, I think the whole of this area eventually will be formed of dust and desert, and that's all that will be left after 5 years fracking. So yes, I'm not just angry. And the worst thing is of INEOS, it isn't a PLC, don't forget. You can't have shareholdings in it. And it used to consist of 90 companies. It's now 80. And really, INEOS upstream have very little funding. And they are projecting what they're going to do by actually procrastinating what might happen, not really what will happen. And they're funded back to back to back by banks with no indemnity whatever. And of course, Jim Ratcliffe, the owner, I look upon him as a marvellous guy. He's done so much for capitalism. And I'm all for capitalism, that's the whole point. But I cannot stand capitalism ruining our ecosystem and at the same time making sure that this ethylene and ethane that we're going to get from the land isn't going to go to our fuel supply. It's going to go to planet plastic. It's going to go into plastic. Can you all believe that? We don't need this. We need renewables. We need solar, wind energy, all sorts of things, but not literally coming from 1 mile to 2 miles down, ruining our aquifers, our water. And then if it doesn't ruin our supply, it will be poisoned by radioactive salts. And I really think at the end of the day, Lee, people ought to wake up. And it's no good saying, well, you know, Jim Ratcliffe can do what he wants in INEOS, because Jim Ratcliffe is now a fugitive from Britain and is living, can you believe, in Monaco, as 2 of his other directors and cohorts are now. So yes, he is really the richest man in Britain. But we will be the poorest people in Britain because we will have no ecology at all. And this is the first, don't forget, of a lot. And once we get one well here, there'll be 100 surrounding us. And they'll be going up the spine of the Pennines where the old coal fields were. Don't you think we've suffered enough? Don't you think we cannot in any way supplement this in any way unless we have water? And he really couldn't give a damn, could he? He's just literally going to make more plastics. Please, David Attenborough, he used to work for the Natural History Unit, please come in and help us.
Well, there you have it. What a lovely lady. And what I have learned from the people so far is each one of them have told me that it appears to be really dangerous to frack in ex-coal mining areas. I wanted to look deeper into this, so I went to speak to Harry Barnes, former MP for North East Derbyshire, who has a vast knowledge on the mining industry. Let's take a look what he's got to say. Hi, I'm here at the former site of Plesley Colliery with former MP for North East Derbyshire, Harry Barnes. And you were the MP there for 18 years?
That's right.
Excellent. Okay, could you tell me a little bit about fracking and what the dangers of fracking and why we should be worried about it?
Well, I think fracking is particularly dangerous in former coal mining areas, and this area is definitely of that nature. There were 50 deep mine pits that operated from the mid-19th century up to the final closure of Markham Pit in 1993. Plesley behind us being one of those, and they operated at a depth. They'd have at least 2 shafts that took place, and they're exactly the area that fracking bodies are looking for in order to get hold of shale gas.
So, as you can see, the former headstocks are behind us of Plesley Colliery. Is this the kind of thing that we're going to be seeing if the fracking goes ahead? Because it doesn't look that big to me on there.
No, it'll be massive compared to the headstocks. The one at Bramley Moor Lane near Ecological,
Yeah.
is to be about 86% the height of the Crooked Spire at Chesterfield. And that's just a start of the operations, and there'll be developments in other areas that might be higher.
And how many are we going to see? Because you can see a couple of stockheads here. Nothing out of the ordinary, really.
There's going to be numbers in different places.
Yeah.
But the major danger isn't so much the initial stockhead and the investigation underground.
Yeah.
It's when they get underground and then do horizontal operations. And those horizontal operations, according to an American firm, Halliburton, can last for up to 3 miles. So that go down, go under for 3 miles in different directions. So it could come up to 6 or so that they were operating on. And it means that although it looks like all this is done in a rural setting, a lot of the coal, and ex-coal, was under what were built upon urban areas.
So they're going to be drilling under people's houses?
They'll go into people's houses, and you don't have the right as a house owner to say you can't go underneath my bit of ground.
Even though it's my land and...
Even though it's your land, that's taken away from you within the legislation, and you can't have the say. That's the say of the government or the authority that's issuing the permission to INEOS or whoever's doing it.
I remember when Mansfield was, where I'm from, Mansfield was a mining village, and we used to have, you know, subsidence. This could be on a way grander scale. It could be earthquakes that we're talking about, not just subsidence.
Yeah. Well, there was a earthquake, a proper earthquake, in Lincolnshire in 2008, and that affected Mansfield, this area, whole areas of Derbyshire very, very considerably.
Might be a daft question, but underground, where the mines used to be, there's still machinery under there, I believe, anyway, that the pits have left. That the
there will be
and
various machines.
There's obviously machines, pockets of gas. Is there a chance of explosions and underground explosions?
They're not supposed to operate above a certain level of seismic activity.
Yeah.
I don't know how you check that they actually obeying the law in connection with it. But being as there's disruption that's taking place, there's always the possibility of some collapse at a low level that's then brought down. Then there's those areas where there were bell pits and whatnot, where it's just a very, very short distance. And the chances are that when they engage in these operations and shake it up, those bits start to go. Some might drop and settle and not be any problem, but in others there's dangers that actually there's going to be breakages and sinkages that would take place. And the Coal Authority is always looking into this problem because it occurs naturally, even without you prodding it in the way that fracking bodies work.
Now, your background and knowledge in mining is quite vast. Should people seriously be worried about this?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think you should be worried wherever fracking takes place. But I think in mining areas for it to take place, where underground there's all this coal that's been taken out, there's still seams that have within them a whole host of gas provisions that's there to get out. I think we should be terribly worried, particularly in coal mining areas, about it taking place. And they can get to you from rural areas under urban areas and see that they get the gas out.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I've learnt quite a lot there, so thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Wow, not just interesting, but really alarming. I think we need to pray that there are no earthquakes and nothing bad happens. And who better to speak to than Reverend Deborah Hodson. I'm here, right on Robin Hood's doorstep, opposite the major oak, with Reverend Deborah Hodson.
Hello!
Deborah, I've heard stories they're going to frack right on Robin Hood's doorstep.
Yes, they are, and they can frack off. Yes, they can. What they're saying is there won't be any evidence above ground, but when they frack, they go down and then go out, and they literally fracture the earth, and it can go in any direction.
So it could
literally be underneath our beautiful major oak, a tree that is known about all over the world. It could literally be underneath that. We have so many ancient oaks in this forest. It is absolutely beautiful. We walk among gods in this forest. It is beautiful. We have Thinghow, an ancient Danelaw meeting site, about a mile that way, and that is the other side of the forest that they're going to be fracking from. It's unconceivable. It's not very often I'm lost for words, believe me, but when I try and rationalise why they're going to be doing this, I really don't know.
How many miles away is it going to be from the actual major oak where they're fracking?
I believe it'll be about a mile, but they can go down and go out.
So their tunnels could come.
Their tunnels could be under here, and we not only have we will not only have theirs to think about, but this area for hundreds of years has been a mining area right through from Roman times, and the mines weren't mapped down before, I think it was 1869. So we've got all of those decades before of literally warrens, like rabbit holes of mines down there, and a professor has recently done a report on the danger of fracking in a mining area.
You can have toxic gases in those mines.
Yeah, and we also have, not too far from here, Bolsover, which is, yeah, it's in Derbyshire, but it's very close to the Nottinghamshire border. We actually had a village that was moved because of toxic gases. I believe it was the radon.
Yes, it was. I remember that. I've heard of that town.
So we've got lots and lots of things to think about. We've also got, we're on top of one of the biggest aquifers in England. I think it's the second biggest one. 8 million people need that water to survive. We need water, we need clean air. And if they drill down through the aquifer could become contaminated also. There's just so many things to bring into question. The forest going back toward where Thinghow is, the ancient Danelaw meeting site, because one of the pit shafts was sunk, it disrupted the water to the forest, and so many trees nearly died because of lack of water.
So what can we do to stop this fracking going ahead?
Right, I truly believe we need to come together in numbers. One, get in touch with your MPs. We don't want this. How many times have we said we don't want this? Areas have come out, communities coming together saying we do not want this, with the council supporting them, yet government is overturning and saying no, it will happen. So get in touch with your MPs, sign petitions, write letters, find a local frack group near you. There are lots of them throughout the country. You don't even have to be in an area where fracking is imminent to you or even proposed to near you. There are areas that are just coming together because they don't want this. They know what will happen. It's banned in so many countries.
So the only way really to stop fracking going ahead is by people power and the public voice. And
yeah, I truly believe people power, public voice, we come together. This is one thing that has come out of this fracking. A sense of community is coming back. It is bringing people together that would never once have met, and we are making lifelong friends. And it is bringing that, because we are all have such a passion wanting this not to go ahead.
The fracking companies really are the opposite of Robin Hood. They're not stealing from the rich to give to the poor. It's basically they're stealing away our land, our heritage to give to the rich.
Yes,
basically.
They are the sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we need to tell them to frack right off.
Yes.
Reverend, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you
It's been
very
a pleasure.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, what a character. Hi Debbie, if you're watching. My final step of the journey takes me to see Carol Pointer, a local resident of Marsh Lane. What would you say if they were going to frack right on your backyard? Let's take a look. Hi, I'm here with Carol Pointer, local resident of Marsh Lane. Carol, thanks for coming to see me today. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on them fracking right on your doorstep?
Where do you want me to begin, basically? I'm not, to say I'm not well impressed would be an understatement. Fracking isn't a very nice industry and it shouldn't be allowed anywhere, and I certainly don't want it on my doorstep, and I certainly won't want it on anybody's doorstep either. And the information we found out since we first heard that this was going to be happening in our area is very, very scary, and a lot of it is covered up. You're not fully aware of the facts until you really start to delve into all the background behind it. So it makes it even more daunting to know that this company is basically wanting to put a rig 400 metres or less behind my house where we currently live.
400 metres?
Yeah, we're inside the government won't allow setback distances in certain areas. You allow setback distances, they can't build anything like that where there's local housing or anything like that. But in this country, because the country is so small, they're trying to do away with any kind of setback distances. So basically, we're, depending on where you measure it from, we are within 400 metres of where that rig and the site will be.
You're going to hear that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We're going to hear that. We're going to hear that regardless of what they say. It's a very, very quiet area. One of the reasons I like the area, I mean, I married my husband and moved up here 2 years ago, though I've known my husband for 4 years, is the lack of noise, the light pollution. There is no light pollution at night. Everything is just unreal, and we can hear birds that are sitting in the trees that are on the site. There's a farm next to it and we can hear the sheep and the ducks, so we're certainly going to hear generators, and we're certainly going to hear a rig drilling without any problem whatsoever. INEOS say, oh, we've got to do is shutters, windows and closes curtains and forget about it.
It's that easy then, just basically close your curtains and shut your windows.
All our back windows will face to the side, so we'll see it as well, and we'll get light pollution from it, as will all my neighbours on that road as well. They have done noise monitoring, but unfortunately we argued that they hadn't correctly done the noise monitoring but they say it'll be absolutely fine. We'll wait to see. I shall look forward to not being able to sleep at night. They've been told that we might get minimum noise disruption, and people that have been asleep might get affected and wake up, and they might have trouble getting back to sleep. That's actually in the report. So let's see what happens. But they've got to get on site and start drilling first, and at the moment that's not happening. So,
well, I do hope that they don't get permission to do this, because that just beggars belief, really.
well, yeah, I mean, our house value was basically dropped overnight from the planning application being accepted. My main concern, and I have brought this up with the company, is who looks after us, because if we can't get to sleep because of noise or for whatever reason we're affected and we can't work, God forbid, you know, who's going to pay our mortgage? Nobody's going to pay our mortgage. Nobody's going to protect us from what's out there. They haven't got any kind of indemnity insurance, and it's a very, very frightening situation. I've got old people living next to me. I've got a gentleman who's very, very ill, and he's in the house, you know, 24/7. So he's going to hear it more than me. At least I can go to work if I'm at, you know, hopefully I'll be able to work. But it is very, very scary. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I'm not prepared to let it happen. I will do my best to make sure it doesn't, and keep on fighting.
Well, I've learnt a lot over the last few weeks filming this documentary, this vlog, and I have to say, I really hope that none of this goes ahead, because it's just absolute insanity. So it's crazy. Thank you very much for coming down to see me today.
Thank you
and
for visiting us.
and I hope they don't get a go ahead for this. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So there you go, that's the end of my journey. A journey that wouldn't have been possible without my friend Sue here. Sue, thank you for introducing me to some wonderful people. It's been a real eye-opener. Thank you very much. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
It has been sort of covered on the movie already, that there are some absolutely beautiful places here. And what isn't generally realised is that in 2015, that brought in £2 billion into the economy through tourism. I was just curious, who is going to come?
Nobody will come when it's a gas field.
Who is going to come when it's a gas field?
Nobody.
Nobody, no. But who would cover those jobs that are lost?
Nobody.
Very sad.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. I think you've covered everything.
Brilliant, thank you.
Other people are experts and they've done it far better than I could.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, one last thing.
Oh, there you go. No fracking way. Thank you. Well, just stay there 1 second. Not only is that the end of my journey, it's also the end of my first series. Join me in a couple of weeks' time when I'm back in the United States for my second series. I've got some weird and wonderful things to show you in the second series. So until then, remember, like and subscribe, and also share this video. Let's get the message out there. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Frack right off.
Frack right off.
Frack off. Frack right off.
Frack right off.
Frack right off.